So here's your to-do list. Hopefully it works. It might not work. Like, not that it won't work. I knew that was going to happen. Let's bring up that. Okay, cool. So I just kind of want to walk through this. So it is best practice for your HTML files is to like initially have like the home page that be called index HTML. And usually for the JavaScript, it's either index.js or app.js. Styles, usually just styles.css, just going forward. So I'm just going to run through this, add a new task. Rake the leaves, it's fall. So if I click that, rake the leaves, I just want to open up my local storage. Gonna zoom in and just to see what that local storage looks like. I'm actually clear. Local storage dot clear. If I refresh, that's gone now. So if I do rake the leaves, add to do, if I do a refresh, it's still there, it persists, it's good. Rake the leaves is true. That means I haven't completed it yet, but if I click on that, if I do rake or local storage again, now rake the leaves is false. Cool. Awesome. So if I do more, like first, second, third. Cool. All right, that works for right now. So I'm going to go back to your HTML, and doing vanilla. Obviously, you don't have any styles, so this is a perfect example to use Bootstrap. So when you're trying to do styling, it takes a long time. Like you can spend hours upon hours going down the CSS rabbit hole, as I'm sure some of you already have, and like trying to make things look right. And we're not all designers in here. This isn't a design boot camp, but luckily there are CSS frameworks out there that have a standardized styling guide as to so instead of a little button like this, which is the default for this web browser, this is what the default button element looks like. We can utilize CSS libraries to make things look better and just to conform to a specific styling standard. So if we go to, and Bootstrap is a very popular one. It is sort of, I don't want to say it's getting out of, it's been around for a long time, and they just released Bootstrap 4, which is really good. But from a design pattern, I don't want to say it looks old, but there are other libraries and frameworks out there that make it that conform to new web design standards. But
Bootstrap is a design tool or a design library. It's all for design.
I don't want to say it's a design library. It just makes things look nicer. So instead of your button looking the way it does, like this, we can make a button look like this with very minimal actual CSS. So build fast, responsive sites with Bootstrap. Bootstrap's a good one. You'll see Material UI. That's a React styling library or framework or library, sorry. So yeah. So there's a couple ways to utilize Bootstrap. If you just go to the documentation, all you really need to do is copy and paste this into your head tag of your HTML. So if I do that, if I come over here inside my HTML, I'm just gonna print that or copy and paste that, and it incorporates this link in here. And this link, this CDN, Content Delivery Network, I believe, or something, has all the code for Bootstrap. So if I literally just type in that, this is all the code for CSS. And if I decide not, and notice how HTTP, blah, blah, blah. It's just a link. It has a min.css. If I got rid of that min, this is really what it is. This actually kind of looks like CSS that we kind of been utilizing, like address, DT, small. But if we want to minimize it, or as far as, because it's easy for computers to parse through this data, that's the same thing. It's just all on like one line. So that's what we're injecting into our HTML. Here, there's also, you can add some other items in here, but we also have a starter template. So if you want everything, you can literally just copy and paste this whole starter template and utilize it. It comes with the Bootstrap CSS. It comes with some more jQuery stuff that Bootstrap has built into it, and also JavaScript. I think is JavaScript, optional JavaScript, one of the two. So you can include JavaScript, because Bootstrap also has some included JavaScript functionality. But we can just start with this part, just the CSS, put it in our head inside of our HTML. And now that will give us access to a lot of functionality, or a lot of design stuff. So over here, we can give examples, icons, themes. But if you go down to components, we can see all the different things we have access to. So for like badges, we can have like something that looks like this, notifications. Let's go down to buttons. Where's buttons? Right here, buttons. And we have all these different buttons we have access to, and that's all you really need to do in order to put like a button, like this primary button, this blue primary button. All I have to do is copy that into wherever I want to go. If I want something to look like this, with danger, with red, success is green, warning, info, blah, blah, blah. Let's do the info one. So I'm just going to copy this over. And inside of, okay, so we have a input submit. So I guess I take it this is your button. So if I replace that and the ID, I'm going to comment that out and kind of look at what your thing looks like now. So we have info, but maybe I want to say add to do. And there we go. It looks a little nicer instead of this, right? Cool. What questions do you have about how to use CSS so far?
So the dependency, there's a dependency for that button, which is the link above that we put in.
Yes. So all this stuff, this link that pretty much this entire link tag that includes this href, which is the URL to all the Bootstrap code, or like the CSS code, that's what it's linked to. And how it does that, we've got a button tag, we have a type of button, and then we have a class, and all these different class names, this is what determines how our button will look. So if I come here, we've got our add to do. Another, if I click that, so it adds another, because I added an ID to it now, which you can, just like you are doing in raw HTML, you can add IDs to it, but it's all based off of types and these class names. So this is the info type of button. See how it says button? So they all have a button class, and they also have a button dash primary, which stands for primary, button dash secondary, that stands for secondary, and button dash info, that stands for the info, and that's the design I want just because of the color. So if I want it to be like a success, which if I want it to be green, I change that button dash info to button dash success. Now if I refresh it, now it's green.
Tom, I got two questions on that. First one is there any way to get the class, you got class equals, I can see that getting really bloated, with like a whole bunch of class names in there. Mm-hmm. What do you do if you need to get a hold of an element by class name? Can you just put in one of those class names, or do you have to put in all of them? And is there a way around bloating up that class equals thing,
So we need this specific class names so it knows specifically like how to design that button. But you can add other class names such as like I don't know, input button, or just like input. I don't want to say input. Something like, oh geez, yeah, to do. Yeah, like to do, because this button is a to do button. So I can reference that specific class name. But yeah, I guess there isn't a way to bloat that will like prevent your class names, your classes from getting like super bloated. But generally speaking, they're not that bloated. Like I've never seen a case where it's like not readable.
Okay.
But,
And second question was like, so I was noticing on the components, if you go back to Bootstrap on the left, like something like the progress bar component down there. Yeah, so like how would you programmatically with JavaScript, they give you like the like that's a static thing. Like how would you like,
you'd have to incorporate JavaScript. You'd have to have like an ID attached to it, and then somehow reference that ID and change like the style, or I'm sorry, like the values, like programmatically.
Okay.
So yeah.
I see. Okay.
So yeah, that's one way. You'd have to like programmatically via JavaScript change the values in JavaScript.
Got it. So you would get a hold of like area value now, and then set that value to the new thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's one way. You have like forms. These are form groups. So if I wanted to actually create a brand new form group, I can literally just throw that down here, refresh that. Now I've got this form group. So for example, forms, it's all right here. It's like right up against the edge. Actually, I'm gonna get rid of that form group and start just mess with this one. So this is cancel input. So I just want to look at inputs. So I've got input label, email address. So I'm just going to look at that. I'm going to input for enter new task. I'm going to comment this one out. If I refresh it, so now I've got this huge long ass form input, and we can mess with that in a little bit. But so the input type, I don't want it to be email. I just want it to be text, form control. I don't really need it. We can do ID. We can use the ID from here. And I don't really need this described by right now. So everything's still the same. Does this work? Okay, it still works. Now let's kind of do some more customizing, because I don't like how this is all to the edge of the screen. We can get into like spacing. So you can just type in like sizing. We can have a large form, large input, forms. So you have all these different types of forms. So form control large. So I can do that. There we go. That's a little bit better. I can even have like the button be bigger if I wanted to. So buttons, scroll down, you can have different types of buttons. So outline, I kind of like the outline portion of it. So instead of success, I have outline success. And there I've got that. Now if I want to make that bigger, We have a large button. We can add this little button dash large class at the very end of it. So button dash large class. And now we've got a large class button. Still works. And you can just keep on doing this. If you want to have like a nav bar, so navs, these are different types of navs you can have, but you can have a nav bar. Like this is, and this is all the code right here for this specific nav bar. So it has like a logo, a home, a link, a drop down, and disabled. And you can just like, hey, I want this, but I don't want it to be, I just want to see if there's anything else that I might want, the different types of nav bars. See, like something like this. This might be better.
So Tom, is there anything anything unique to Bootstrap that or is Bootstrap just a bunch of developers went through and guessed what we might want and wrote the code to it so that we can copy and paste it?
Yeah.
Or is there like code that is Bootstrap?
They're like,
I guess I don't know if I'm being clear. Like, is it all just HTML and CSS and you just copy and paste it, or is there like something that's proprietary about it?
so as far as so there is JavaScript in it, but yeah, so like a bunch of developers got together or like designers and got together and said, hey, this is probably the best. This is how we think styling should be. And they all like decided, hey, this is probably the best way, we should design CSS. And they all came together and decided that and created Bootstrap. So what do you mean if there's anything proprietary to it?
Like I could do all of the same things that's in Bootstrap without referring to it. It's just much simpler for me to go get it and copy and paste it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And like a bunch of apps or websites use Bootstrap. Like Trello is all Bootstrap. So I mean, there's some customization in it, but it's all. So let me log in. Do I even have a login? I don't even know what my login is. But yeah,
that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't remember my login at the moment. But yeah, like there's a million different websites that use Bootstrap. And it's just so easy to do because you can make things look relatively good without much effort. And we encourage you to use Bootstrap or another CSS framework if you're comfortable when you're using your apps, designing your apps going forward, just because half the trouble or half what will make your app stand out isn't the functionality necessarily, it's the design, unfortunately. So if I do that, so now I can like change this if I wanted to. So instead of an unordered list, I'm going to add something, components. Let's add like, instead of, this is just for fun, let's add alerts as our unordered list. So simple. All right. And here, can I do that? That might take me a little longer because I have to jump into JavaScript and line maker. I have to like kind of see what, yeah, disregard. But essentially, you can technically change these with like an alert if you wanted to, by manually adding it in your JavaScript. So like you can actually create, like you can add class names and attributes to specific, like create element list context text, add a style to it. You can add that. but you can also add like class names and stuff to match this stuff. Does anybody have any questions about Bootstrap and how to incorporate it into your HTML? It streamlines and makes designing things a lot easier. If you're like, hey, I'm going to do Bootstrap as a design, use all Bootstrap components. So you don't have to guess of like, what should my button look like? Which size should it be, etc.